The Republic of Georgia passed a controversial anti-discrimination law back in 2014 aimed at protecting gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people. What was the impact of this law?
It was the first step in a program, we fear, because it was presented as a Georgian invention in many ways. But we know for sure that it's part of an international program aimed at attacking traditional values worldwide. And we fear that this is a fundament upon which the entire anti-family, anti-Christian, anti-traditionalist agenda is to be built.
You say this law is part of an international agenda. What is that agenda?
To destroy a family. I believe we are no longer in a war or in wars with countries up against each other. I think there's only one war on this planet, and that is between the life culture, the family culture, the humane culture. And I don't care if you're American or Georgian or Muslim or Christian, and the anti-family culture, the death culture, the culture of consumerism and hedonism, which makes us all very unhappy if we follow it. And the front line of that war is no longer found on the geographic map of this planet. The front line of this war is in every living room and in every bedroom where your wife and my wife, our children sleep. And we are all to choose which side do we want to take in that war.
25 years after the collapse of the Soviet Union, do Georgians still view America as that shining city on a hill?
Look, when we grew up in Soviet Union, we longed for the West. Our anti-Sovietism was never Russophobic. We hated the idea of controlled totalitarian atheism, oppression of freedom of speech, of oppression of private enterprise and private property. These were all things that made us want to break free from Soviet Union. And the light we were seeing was the West, which was pro-freedom of speech, pro-free enterprise, pro-private property. And what a metamorphosis. In these last this year is going to be exactly a quarter of a century that Soviet Union fell apart. And during these 25 years, in our quest towards the West, we sometimes can hardly recognize it. Because sometimes we feel like freedom of speech is much more under danger in the West than in our parts of the world. You can no longer freely express your opinion about what's shameful and what is disgraceful, and you are crucified for that.
And to that point, if you said homosexuality is a sin, which is something people, 10, 15 years ago in America had no problem saying, but today you'd be ridiculed, even prosecuted.
I would even take this further and say that the whole concept of sin is being abolished. Where is it? The metamorphosis in English language is staggering. I studied it since I was a child, and I remember that shame meant shame. In modern English, when someone says it's a shame, he or she means it's a pity. So we see a gutting of the concept of shame. And therefore, that's not the West we were thriving towards.
Are you against all things Western, all things American?
We are not saying we are against West. I always say I'm a big enthusiast of selective Westernization of Georgia. We need to take from the West everything we need to learn from it. For example, on the institutional reform, on the technology side, God forbid, when my tooth hurts, I get treatment by anything but Western-produced equipment. But everything that is harmful and counter to our country. And we need to give, in a way, ourselves that right to be selective. So, hey, to my dismay, the moral condition of Western society is very alarming. I don't think mankind has seen in its entire history such an embarrassing statistic on the marriage side. And so we need to give ourselves the right to say, guys, we want this part, we don't want this part. Hence, when it comes to our dialogue with the West, we are saying we'll take all the productive, progressive things from you, but we'll throw in garbage all the nonsense. And unfortunately, in this particular case, this means your current pseudo-moral standards need to stay outside of Georgia if we want to maintain the family institute as it always has been in Georgia, and we will do this.
But Georgia is no stranger to such cultural invasions, right?
We have been dominated by other superpowers, by other cultures, perhaps even deeper cultures than the American culture for centuries. The Ottomans, the Persians, the Greeks, the Byzantine Empire, the Romans, the Mongols, the Russians.
You know, you've had all of these influences over the centuries. How has this small country managed to remain so strong?
The reason Georgia remained what it is, because our nation, our ethnic culture has a profound feeling of responsibility to holding on to the eternal values, the eternal features of our national character, which by all means are rooted in the Christian culture. We remained Georgians because we held on to that center, which is the essence of our national character. And we are not scared, by the way, about this new wave either. We need to fight it. We need to oppose it in a positive, civilized way. But it will pass and we will remain Georgians like we always have.
Can you describe the battle you are in today?
We are fighting a very different battle in this part of the world. We're fighting for our right, for the freedom of speech. We want to maintain our human dignity to say what we think. So if you think indecent, radically sexual behavior is what you want to do, that's your choice. But if I think that this is an embarrassing sin, I want to remain in a society which is allowed to say that.
Your country today is facing a demographic time bomb. What are the consequences of this for the Georgian family?
Well, the United Nations has put Georgia on the list of dying nations and Georgian language on the list of dying languages. There, I'm sure, very smart computer-equipped analysts have calculated that very soon, in 2050, Georgia will be minus 28%, and ethnic Georgians within that reduction will be minus 50%. And what do you do when you receive a message like this? We kill anywhere from 40 to 100,000 babies in their mother's wombs every year, which for a country like Georgia is a staggering figure. These are all results of an uncontrolled, irreversible tsunami of liberal mainstream media propaganda that Georgia has undergone after the breakup of Soviet Union. How do you reverse that? How do you escape from that? How do you prove these United Nations analysts, with all due respect to them, wrong? You marry your wife and you try to have as many children as you can. You start in your home. And it is a tremendous lie to believe that all of this is happening to us because we're a poor country. Because you and I know that statistics actually speak of the opposite. The richer people get, unfortunately, in most cases, the less babies. Look at Japan, one of the world's richest countries. Look at Western Europe. So it's not the economic hardship that is wrong with us. Something else is wrong with us. And that something else is giving up on the main joy. Look, people say they want hedonism. I'm a hedonist too. I believe in pleasure, but family is the greatest pleasure that I have seen. So in a way, this may sound like a paradox, but let's say this: if you want to be a true hedonist, follow that, and multiply love around you, and that's the only way to be truly hedonistic, to be a family man or a family woman, because there is no greater joy than what you see in the eyes of your children.